Major funding for Carolina Business Review is provided by Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health, including Presbyterian in Charlotte and Forsyth in Winston-Salem, are affiliate heart hospitals of the Cleveland Clinic, consistently ranked #1 in the nation for heart care. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, proudly serving South Carolinians since 1946. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Well, by now, the news of the Democratic National Convention hosting its election year confab in Charlotte is certainly old news, but the buildup toward the actual Labor Day event is gaining real momentum. Thank you for watching and supporting, and welcome again to the most widely watched source for Carolina business and public policy. I'm Chris William, and this time on CBR, DNC Committee Chief Steve Kerrigan. We begin in just a moment.
Major funding also by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, health care, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising health care costs? Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This review was recorded April 10th, 2012. On this week's program, an executive profile featuring Steve Kerrigan, CEO of the Democratic National Convention Committee. Now, Chris William.
Hello, welcome to our program. Happy spring, and Mr. CEO, welcome to the Carolinas. I know you've probably been said to you now for the past year, but it's good to have you here, Steve.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, Steve, DNC this is certainly big news, and it was big news in Charlotte. And I'm sure a lot went through to get to this point, but here you were in 2004 involved with the convention in Boston, had an administrative role. When you compare and contrast that '04 convention and where you are right now in the planning of the 2012 Labor Day event, what has surprised you, positive and negative? What didn't you expect?
Well, it's first of all, thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, I really appreciate it. They're drastically different situations, certainly for me. Back in '04, I was the chief of staff for the host committee, so I was doing it for my hometown of Boston. So it was a different role altogether. But back then, in April, we had just gotten a nominee, John Kerry, in late March. And so we had been doing an awful lot of work for an awful long time without really sort of the vision and direction of a candidate. Mm-hmm. So we have that now. We also chose the city of Boston in a different way than we chose Charlotte. I had the great honor of coming here actually 2 years ago this month for the first time to visit Charlotte and run the site selection process. And we took a different approach to why we chose North Carolina versus when we chose Massachusetts. So it sort of does color the whole program. We are much further along now than I think we've ever been in any convention planning. And it's because of the coordination and cooperation of the people here in North Carolina and in the whole region. And frankly, the commitment and energy and excitement that people bring to the table. We have exceeded on almost every one of our timelines and goals, and we're excited about that. Boston was a unique situation for me, and I used to always love to say it was the best convention we've ever had, but we've already exceeded that here in North Carolina, and I expect to do the same in 100 and something days.
How is the planning of it, and how's kind of the thinking, the DNA of the conference as you head toward the actual event itself, and you've got a nominee. You know who the incumbent is.
It is easier.
Is it easier? And then what does the convention take on in your head? In other words, what would a successful convention look like?
Well, it's a lot easier because of several things, but one really simple thing. The president gave us very clear direction from the very beginning. President Obama said he wanted this to be the most open and accessible convention in history. So that really becomes a part of everything we do, from how we do business contracting outreach from how we develop our vendor directory, which is the most robust one we've ever had. It's a directory online at demconvention.com that includes thousands of businesses. All types of goods and services are provided there, so that not only we get our businesses through that, but we're encouraging the over 1,000 events that will be planned that we don't plan that week in North Carolina, that they use that as well. So it really, the economic accessibility of it, that is a goal of the president's. Our diversity contracting goal that we announced recently of spending at least 1/3 of our contracting dollars in diverse businesses, that is a goal set by the president, by this overarching goal of being the most open and accessible convention.
And is that a floor or is that a ceiling?
It's a floor, total floor, yeah. And it's been our goal for a long time to maximize opportunities in the diverse contracting, and we worked on it in our RFP. It was part of the master contract. The vendor directory that we developed with the host committee was a key part of it last fall, and then just the announcing of this goal was another major step to really highlight where it's unprecedented. No convention in history has ever set such a high number and set it as a floor. And we're on the way to meeting it and exceeding it. So we're excited about it, but it's made easier by having that vision in that direction from the president and on through the whole planning process.
Do you feel handicapped with the, the word came down on high about no corporate dollars. We're not going to raise corporate money. And, as you're driving in your car, Steve, going somewhere, you're thinking, wow, this is going to be a different challenge. Is that handicapped the fundraising? Where are you with fundraising? And how much more do you have to go?
First of all, we used to joke when we looked at probably 11 cities, I think, over the course of site selection and narrowed it down to 4. And every city has unique traits and talents. We always said that any city's challenge, if we chose them, would end up becoming an opportunity to do things differently. We are blessed with the fundraising goals, frankly, that make us use that as a real opportunity to do things differently. This is about the conversation the president started 5 years ago with neighbors and folks talking around the dining room table and on their front porches about how we can move America forward in the right direction, how we can increase the influence of grassroots Americans in presidential politics and in the administration, and how we move our country forward. And that's really what these goals are about. Yes, it eliminates corporate cash, and it eliminates lobbyist cash, and eliminates PAC money, but it also looks for ways to increase. From format to funding, we have found ways throughout this planning process to increase the influence of grassroots everyday Americans in our convention planning process, and really giving them a bigger voice.
What is an example of something that came up that wouldn't maybe have 4 years ago?
Sure. Well, we got a lot of great ideas from folks. When we announced we were coming here, February 1st of 2011, the First Lady announced that this would be a different type of convention for a different time. We asked for a bunch of ideas. We've done that several times through email programs. And folks from all across the country have submitted thousands and thousands of ideas because we wanted to hear their input. We wanted to give them a voice in this process. Some of the great ideas included everything from making sure that we use the Charlotte Motor Speedway in a really special way, which we're doing on Monday, Labor Day, with a family-friendly festival-like environment out there that celebrates the Carolinas, Virginia, and the South. And really helps us kick off the convention week in a really special way. That came out as a result of several people suggesting that we use that venue in a particular way, and the move to Bank of America Stadium on Thursday night. Obviously, we had done it in 2008. President Obama accepted the nomination at Football Stadium in Denver. But people suggested we try and look at that again this cycle. We did look at it, and after several months of questioning and answering and figuring out our plans, we announced that as well in January. So it's really giving folks an opportunity, plus having them sign up on this vendor directory, having them get engaged and involved in volunteering, getting folks really involved in their communities or all across North Carolina. We have a thing called the 100 County Plan. So we've engaged county convention organizers in every one of the 100 counties to engage them, get them involved, hear from them what we can do to make sure this is a Carolina convention. This isn't just about Charlotte, and it isn't, frankly, just about the Democratic Party. It's about bringing Americans from all walks of life together to really talk about their vision for the future.
Does that extend to South Carolina? Do you?
Oh, sure.
You reach out to South Carolina with the same type of progressiveness?
Sure. We've had a lot of conversations with folks in South Carolina about outreach. We've done some business outreach gatherings in South Carolina. We have many of our guests staying just over the border in Rock Hill and other places. We have worked hard with Mr. Clyburn from South Carolina to make sure that we're continuing to keep South Carolina, and for that matter, Virginia, on the northern border. We have worked hard to make sure that they're a part of this as well. I mean, when we did our kickoff in September, so it was a year out from the convention, September 6th, and we had an event at the Time Warner Cable Arena that had over 2,000 people show up. Threw the doors open. It was unbelievable.
And did that surprise you?
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah, we built, as in my business, when you want a full room, you rent a phone booth. That's the only way you can guarantee you get a full room at an event. So you're always taking a gamble when you pick a site. But we had a feeling that we would have a lot of folks interested in coming to this. But it was a Tuesday morning. You know, there was a rainstorm the night before. It was the day after Labor Day. People had to get back to their lives. But over 2,000 people came. We had to shut down the concourse at the arena because there were too many people there. A week before in Tampa, they had a closed-door, high-dollar fundraiser where, according to the press, dozens of people showed up for the RNC's year out. I'm not saying that their way is wrong for them. If that's the way they choose to do it, that's fine. We choose to do it in a way that throws the doors open, welcomes people, and engages them in an effort to get Americans to come together around a common cause.
You know, Steve, you seem like, and we haven't had a chance to really talk a whole lot, but heard from other people around you, and you seem like a reasonable guy. You seem like a...
I like to think so.
And you are. I get the sense that you are. When you hear of some of the rhetoric that goes on between the not just the two parties, but just in politics in general, how do you, in your role, how do you, with this event, in this convention, how do you affect that in a good way?
By trying to do the best we can to stay above all of that and stay focused on what's important. What's important for us is to host the most open and accessible convention in history. Include people in the process. Make sure folks know that they can have a role in this, that they can be a part of it, that the Democratic Party and this president want them involved in not just how we plan this convention, but what it represents, because it's not just a nominating tool, although it is that, and we will do that. But it's also an opportunity to reaffirm who we are as a party and who we are as Americans. We reaffirm our platform. We talk about the core beliefs of our party. And that's really what it is about. They're going to have a similar gathering a week before in Florida, and I wish them well. I really do. But that's the difference between the two parties, is those core beliefs and how you go about it. We've gone about it by including more Americans and throwing the doors open and engaging them in our process, by asking folks to get involved in our fundraising at a grassroots level, and by saying this isn't just about corporations and about lobbyists. And that's what I'd really like us to get out of this, is that we plan a convention that we can be proud of, that engages more Americans across the country and around the world in what we're doing here in North Carolina, but really what we're doing for the party and for the future. Because this is going to be, it culminates for us at 10 o'clock on Thursday, September 6th, when the president takes the stage. But that's really when the general election campaign begins. And then there's 2 more months for him, and then hopefully 4 more years. But we really set the table. He gets 2 shots at an open microphone to himself in that year. One was the State of the Union, and one is this convention address. And this is his opportunity to really lay out his case as to what he's done in the last 3.5 years and what he hopes to do in the next 4.
And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it's worth mentioning, when you've got DNC Chair Wasserman going after the Republicans about women's issues, I guess the question is when does someone stand up and say, listen, this is not going to be about partisan politics. This is going to be about character, and this is going to be about what's doing right. We're not going to throw any stones. And I think that there seems to be, and evidence will suggest that there's a silent group of Americans, certainly Carolinians, that just want a parent in charge somewhere in here. So I guess, how do you do that?
Well, I think it's by the example of how you do the job that you've been elected or hired to do, as the president has been. He has put this country above politics and in large measure above party in a lot of what he has done and in the leadership that he has demonstrated. There will be partisan disagreements, and there is a lot of rhetoric that goes around. A lot of people stay employed through the use of a lot of great rhetoric. But what it comes down to is whose ideas do you share the most? Whose direction of the country do you agree with? And whose set of policies do you think best reflect you, your friends, neighbors, and loved ones, and who do you think is best set to lead this country in the right direction? There's a lot of talking back and forth, but in the end, this has to be about looking at what the president's done in the last 3.5 years, which is an amazing record of accomplishments, and what he has laid out as his vision for the future for the next 4.
And I want to talk about the economic impact in Charlotte and the Carolinas and a little bit delineate that a little bit more. But at this point, I also want to ask you this: when we're talking about political leadership and talking about the correct way to go about it, what did you learn being on Ted Kennedy's staff? What was? And here's a guy that I wouldn't call retiring. I don't know that anyone would.
No.
So, and again, you seem kind of the antithesis to how Senator Kennedy would sometimes communicate. What did you learn from him?
First of all, he was the first thing that popped in my head when you asked your last question, because of all of the bloviating about partisanship that is done, and the demonizing that is done on both sides, and he did his share of that. He was always the one, and any Republican who ever worked with him on stuff was always the one who would sit around a table and say, okay, let's find a way to move this country in the right direction. Let's find common agreement on something and move us forward, whether it's healthcare, education, or jobs. And I think that's missing a lot. He was a huge fan of the president's. That's why he came out so early and endorsed him, because he believed in his vision and the way in which the president was running his campaign. He had sort of turned conventional wisdom on its head in 2007 when he started engaging the grassroots of the party first and not worrying about bigwig PACs and lobbyists and fundraising, but it was really about engaging in this conversation that he has continued to have for the last 5 years. And I know that Senator Kennedy enjoyed being part of that conversation. He enjoyed watching the president take that oath of office and work hard for the beliefs that they shared. I am sorry that he couldn't be here for so many of the parts of the president's first term, and he will be sorely missed at this convention.
Economic impacts. There are some estimates, 200 million or so, at least in the Charlotte area. When you look past that, and the party's over, everyone goes back to their states and their respective.
Sweep up all the confetti.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, or whatever's left.
Right.
What happens? What is Charlotte like then? What are the Carolinas? What is the region? What is the afterglow? What's the effect? What's the halo around this?
Well, there's a lot. I get asked this a lot, and I would say a lot depends on what they do now. That it's not just about us bringing a convention here, having it be successful, and us leaving, and automatically there's a great benefit for the city. There is that. This is an unprecedented time for a city like Charlotte and states like North and South Carolina. The eyes of the world will be on the city and this region for an entire week. There'll be 15,000 members of the media here, 35,000 delegates and guests. There'll be folks from literally all around the world who will be here. The impact of that and being able to showcase this community as the world-class city and region that we know it to be really is unprecedented. You can't buy that type of advertising. If you could, it would be really, really expensive. But it really is an unprecedented opportunity. But that's on that end. Right now, it's getting them engaged and involved to make sure that we can maximize that. You know, we're not the only ones who spend dollars that week. Over 1,000 events will take place in Charlotte that week that we don't control. So folks who are looking for business should go on that vendor directory and sign up. They should look for contracting opportunities that we'll announce through the vendor directory, things like that, to make sure that the benefit that week is there. But you can't measure right now the impact that it'll have to show the world. I mean, we did it just even in Boston in 2004. We did it and did it right. And it has resulted in thousands more hotel rooms being built in the region. We haven't been able to shut down. We had 2 convention facilities in Boston, mostly because we couldn't figure out what to do with the old one when we built the new one. Now we can't close one of them because there's so much business coming. We know for a fact, right after we announced we were coming here to North Carolina, the CRVA, the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority, got calls from international organizations that they had gone after business for before, who had been told, they'd told them no, that Charlotte couldn't do this. And they had called back and said, if the DNC picked you, then you must know what you're doing, and so we'd like to bring our event here. So there's already seeing the effect. I mean, the short-term effects are very clear on the spending that we'll do and the others will do. It is a hotel week that is not usually that occupied, so we already hit that one out of the park. But really it's how much the community gets invested on the front end in showing their city off to the world. If everybody gets involved in making sure that this city is ready, the city is engaged, the city is exciting and dynamic, as we all know it to be. If they do all that and get behind all those efforts that the host committee and the mayor and others are involved in, then it'll really show this city to be the shining city we know it is.
Which you're exactly right, and I know one of the concerns would be security concerns, and not just keeping people in the right place or going the right way, but protesters or the Occupy movement, or who knows, in some of the images coming out of Minneapolis, St. Paul. So Steve, I guess you can't guarantee against any of this because it's pretty much a free-for-all, and you want it to be a creative thing. But how do you control it without controlling it?
Well, it's a long process. A lot of people think that these things can just be put together pretty quickly.
Sure.
You don't think that, thank you. But a lot of folks do, and a lot of folks also think that it's just simple to develop a security plan by drawing a red line around a building. It's not. It has to be a long process. We started last year with the Secret Service and with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg PD and with the state and with others and those in South Carolina to make sure that all of our planning is not just security-based but transportation-based, that we work with the stakeholders in the region to make sure that our delegates and guests have a safe and good experience, but that those who live, work, and raise a family in the region can go to their jobs, go to school, go to the grocery store, do all those things. I mean, we encourage folks to come to Uptown that week because we want folks to see that Charlotte will be open for business. We are going to design a plan with our friends in public safety that will allow for safe and easy access points for our guests, but also for those who want to continue their commute. Yes, there'll be some changes, but we'll plan those and convey them publicly long before the convention so folks can make appropriate plans. Because for us, that accessible part of the most open and accessible convention is important, that we want to make sure that we create a nice access point for our folks, but also for those who live and work in the region. And for those who choose to come, by the way, and demonstrate and exercise their First Amendment rights to express their concern or support for any given issue or person. So we want to make sure that's all a big part of that one plan.
We've got about 5 minutes left, and I certainly want to get to a little bit of the politics of it. Here you've got a convention, by no coincidence, is in one of the swing states, one of the
you noticed that.
Critical. How'd that happen, by the way? How'd that work out? What is going to happen? You've got Bev Perdue that's not running for re-election. You've got a former Charlotte Mayor, Pat McCrory, that's got a lot of wind at his back, and many people are assuming now that he is going to be the next governor. You've got a state that Barack Obama certainly wants to win. From your point of view, how do all these dynamics work out? Where is this going to end up after that first Tuesday in November?
Well, we're confident it's going to end up with North Carolina continuing to be blue. We eked it out in 2008 with 14,177 votes. But I'm confident that we'll know.
Not that you've counted.
Right, many, many times. First of all, I'm confident we'll know on Tuesday, November 6th, not on Wednesday, which is what we found out in 2008. And it's going to be because not only of the effort that we're undertaking in North Carolina with this convention, but really because of that attitude and that conversation I've talked about, where the president is engaging people in real ways and not just talking rhetoric to them. We're engaging folks in their communities and in their living rooms and on their porches in this discussion. This really is about Americans coming together around a central goal of moving our country forward, not necessarily Democrats moving our country forward or Republicans moving our country, but Americans working together to advance our country. And I think folks will see, when you look at what the president inherited, over 3 years ago, we've had over 2 years of growth. The job numbers are getting better. They could be better, but they're getting better. He has created unprecedented healthcare opportunities. There are 2.6 million young people who can stay on health insurance because of the president's plan under their parents' healthcare plan. I mean, there's lots of things that need to be conveyed to voters so that they understand what this first term has been about and what the next term will be about. And I think what you'll see over the course of this campaign and over the course of this convention is an effort to engage and embrace the grassroots of our country in this conversation so that when it's over with, whether it's September 6th when the president leaves the stage in Charlotte or November 6th when he takes the stage, I would suspect, in Chicago to give his speech after he won a second term, that all Americans are together around the common cause of moving our country forward.
Steve, we're out of time. I want to wish you, I think, good luck in not just convention planning, but also in your second Boston Marathon.
Oh,
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks.
God bless you. Most people run away from that stuff, not run to it. But It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
And I think for everyone in the Carolinas, they have their eyes on how this convention is going to unfold. And we appreciate you being on this program.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Until next week, I'm Chris William. We hope all that your business is good. And if you have any comments, please go to CarolinaBusinessReview.com and watch programs or make comments. Until next week, good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health, including Presbyterian in Charlotte and Forsyth in Winston-Salem, are affiliate heart hospitals of the Cleveland Clinic, consistently ranked #1 in the nation for heart care. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, proudly serving South Carolinians since 1946. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit CarolinaBusinessReview.com.